12-year-old Zahara was not like most girls in the small village of Kijiji Yatumaini, Kenya. While others played in the fields or helped with chores, Zahara could always be found sitting under the big mango tree, her nose buried deep in a book. Her dream was simple but bold. She wanted to become a doctor. Every time she flipped a page, she saw a future far beyond the dusty roads of her village. A future where she could wear a white coat, heal the sick, and bring hope to those who had none. She lived with her father, Mwalimu Baraka, the village schoolteacher, a kind and gentle man who believed in the power of education. He was her biggest supporter, always bringing her second-hand books from the market, always telling her, "Knowledge is your wings, Zahara." The two shared a bond that went beyond words, full of quiet smiles and shared dreams. But life at home wasn't always easy. Her stepmother, Agneta, was cold and distant, never once calling Zahara her daughter. She rarely smiled at her, never praised her. Even when Zahara came home with top marks, Agneta's face remained stone. There was something in her eyes, not just indifference, but something deeper. Zahara didn't understand it, but she felt it every day like a shadow that followed her. Still, she held on to her dreams with fierce hope. Under that mango tree, in the quiet of the evening, Zahara read stories of science and medicine, of women who changed the world. She imagined herself among them. She promised herself, "One day I will leave this place. One day I will become Dr. Zahara." And even though the path ahead was uncertain, her heart was full of light. Agneta watched Zahara from the kitchen window, her hands still wet from washing the dishes. There the girl was again, sitting under that old mango tree with a book in her lap, eyes shining like she was reading magic. Mwalimu Baraka, her husband, would soon come home and smile at Zahara like she was the sun itself. And that smile, that's what burned Agneta the most. It hadn't always been like this. Long ago, Agneta had her own dreams too. As a young girl, she used to sit in the back of a crowded classroom, hungry to learn. But her father didn't believe in wasting money on girls. One day, he pulled her out of school to help at home. And just like that, her dreams faded. No books, no classroom, no future. Just chores and silence. She told herself it was fine, that she would be okay, that one day she'd find happiness in other ways. But then came Zahara, so bright, so full of ambition. Every time Agneta saw her with a book, every time she heard her speaking with confidence, something inside her twisted tight. It wasn't just jealousy, it was pain, a reminder of everything she had lost. And the way Mwalimu looked at Zahara, with pride, with love, with hope. He had never looked at Agneta that way. The villagers had started to notice. When the women gathered at the well or by the maize stalls, they whispered softly behind cupped hands. "She can't stand that girl," they'd say, always so cold to her. Some even remembered how Agneta used to talk about becoming a nurse once, but she never did. Now she lived in a home where every corner echoed with Zahara's laughter and the sound of turning pages. A home where she felt like a stranger. She told herself Zahara was just a stepchild, not truly hers, but deep down, she knew it wasn't Zahara's fault. The girl had done nothing wrong, except shine too brightly. And that light, oh that light, made Agneta feel smaller every day. The rain poured down in steady sheets that evening, turning the red earth of Kijiji Tumaini into thick mud. But inside Mwalimu Baraka's small house, joy was pouring just as heavy. Zahara had done it. She had scored the highest marks in the regional science test. Not only that, she had won a full scholarship to study in Nairobi, a big school, a better future. Her dream was finally beginning to come true. Mwalimu Baraka could hardly contain himself. He rushed out into the rain, laughing, shouting the news to neighbors who ran over with wet shawls and muddy feet. "My daughter is going to Nairobi," he beamed, eyes full of tears. "She is going to be a doctor one day. I know it." Inside the house, Agneta stood still, holding a wooden spoon in her hand, the stew on the fire forgotten. She heard the claps, the cheers, the drums someone had started beating. Her lips pulled into a small smile, but it was not real. It was stiff, hollow, the kind of smile that hides something sharp behind it. Her heart was burning with something she couldn't fully name, but it felt like fire crawling through her chest. She remembered her own young face once, full of dreams that went nowhere. No one clapped for her, no one cheered, and now here was Zahara, that girl who sat under the mango tree with her nose in books, being lifted high like a queen. All the attention, all the pride, all the love. It was always Zahara. Agneta tried to stay quiet, but inside her thoughts were loud and messy. What about me? When do I get to be the one celebrated? Why does he only see her? Zahara came running in, soaked but smiling, holding the letter in her hand like it was gold. She hugged her father tight, laughing through tears. Baba, we did it. Agneta watched them from the corner of the room, that fake smile still on her lips. But inside her, something cracked, something deep and dark. And in that moment, she wasn't just jealous. She was angry, not at Zahara's success, but at her own emptiness. That night, as the village danced, Agneta stood in the shadows, her heart storming louder than the rain. The sun had just begun to set when Zahara walked to the village well, her plastic container balanced on her head, humming a soft tune. She had her scholarship letter tucked safely inside her school bag at home, her heart still glowing with hope. Nairobi felt so close now, almost like she could reach out and touch it. In her mind, she pictured the tall buildings, the clean white coats, the stethoscope around her neck. Everything she had ever dreamed of was finally within her reach. Back at the house, Agneta stood silently outside Zahara's small room. Her eyes were blank, her hands shaking slightly as she turned the doorknob and stepped inside. The walls were lined with Zahara's books, neat stacks of science guides, old exam paper, notes written in careful handwriting. Dreams lived in this room, and Agneta, for reasons even she couldn't fully explain, couldn't bear the sight of them anymore. She moved quickly, as if her body was working on its own. She grabbed the tin of kerosene from the kitchen, unscrewed the cap, and began pouring it over the books, the pages soaking, the ink beginning to smudge. The smell filled the small room, thick and sharp. Then she struck a match, just one. The flame flickered in her fingers for a moment before she let it fall. Within seconds, fire roared to life. Zahara's room lit up, not with dreams, but with smoke and destruction. Flames ate the books like they were hungry for her future. Outside, neighbors began shouting, "Fire! Fire!" People ran with buckets of water. Children screamed. Smoke curled up into the sky. Zahara came running, the water container crashing from her head as she saw the black smoke rising from her home. Her heart dropped. "No, no, no!" she cried, pushing through the crowd. She reached her room just in time to see the last of her books turn to ash. She fell to her knees, sobbing so hard her chest hurt. My books, my future, everything's gone. Her hands reached for the burned pages, already crumbling in the dirt. The scholarship, the dream, Nairobi, all of it turned into smoke and ash right in front of her eyes. And Agneta, she stood at the door, silent, her face unreadable, as the village watched in stunned disbelief. Mwalimu Baraka came home from the market just as the last flames died down. His arms were heavy with bundles of fresh vegetables and bread, but when he saw the crowd gathered outside his house, something inside him froze. Smoke still curled from Zahara's room, and villagers stood around in shocked silence. His heart pounded faster as he pushed through them, searching for his daughter. There she was, on her knees, tears streaming down her face, reaching for the blackened pages scattered on the ground. The sight broke something deep inside him. His calm, gentle voice cracked as he called her name, Zahara. Then his eyes found Agneta, standing quietly by the door, her face pale but hard. For the first time in all the years they had lived together, Mwalimu Baraka's voice rose, sharp and full of pain. "How could you do this?" he said, trembling. "How could you burn her books? Her future?" Agneta said nothing. The room felt heavy with hurt. The neighbors watched as the proud teacher, usually so patient and kind, looked broken. His love for Zahara was clear in his eyes, a fierce, fierce love that refused to let her dreams die in the ashes. But Zahara surprised them all. Between sobs, she stood up slowly and took her father's hand. "Baba, please," she whispered. "Don't be angry with her. Please don't fight. I don't want to lose anyone else." Her voice was small but steady, filled with a strength that came from a heart too young to carry so much pain. Without a word, she began gathering the ashes, the pieces of her destroyed dreams, into her hands, as if holding hope itself. Mwalimu Baraka's tears fell freely then, mixing with the dust and the smoke. He looked down at his brave daughter, feeling both heartbreak and pride. In that moment, the whole village saw something powerful, a father's love that would not be broken, and a girl's courage to rise even when everything she loved was gone. News of what happened to Zahara's books spread quickly through Kijiji Yatumaini. The villagers were shocked and saddened, but something beautiful began to happen. The women of the village gathered together, their voices soft but full of determination. They couldn't let Zahara's dreams die in ashes. Not here, not now. An old teacher who had taught in the village years ago heard the story and came with a bag full of worn-out but precious books. "These are for Zahara," he said with a warm smile. "Let her learn. Let her fly." A pastor from the nearby church started a collection among his congregation, gathering notebooks, pens, and school supplies. Even the village children, with their small hands and big hearts, gave away their own pencils and scraps of paper. Zahara watched all this with tears in her eyes, tears that were no longer just of sadness, but also of hope. With her borrowed books and gifts from the village, she found a new place to study, beneath a large acacia tree just outside the village. There, in the cool shade, surrounded by the songs of birds and the hum of life, Zahara opened her books again. Her fingers traced the pages carefully, as if touching something fragile and precious. She knew the path would not be easy. The stolen books were gone forever, but what remained was stronger. A whole village standing behind her, lifting her up. Zahara promised herself she would not give up. She would keep reading, keep learning, keep dreaming. Under that tree, with the sky stretching wide above her, Zahara's heart grew even brighter. This was more than just a place to study. It was a symbol of courage, of love, and of a future that no fire could ever destroy. The village had become her family, and together they would help her reach for the stars. The whole village was stunned when Mwalimu Baraka made his decision. Word spread fast. He was filing for divorce from Agneta. People whispered in disbelief. How could a gentle man like Baraka take such a strong stand? But for him, the choice was clear. He could no longer live with someone who had destroyed his daughter's future. "I cannot live with a woman who burns futures," he said quietly but firmly, his eyes full of pain and determination. He wasn't angry anymore. He was broken but resolute. Zahara's dreams were his dreams now, and he would protect them with everything he had. To make sure Zahara's path stayed clear, he made another bold move. He sold his motorcycle, the one luxury he had saved for years. With that money, he enrolled Zahara in a boarding school far away in Nairobi, a place where she could study without fear, without limits, without the shadows of the past holding her back. The day Zahara left, the village gathered to say goodbye. Some cried, others nodded with hope in their eyes. Baraka stood tall, holding his daughter's hand tightly. "This is your chance, Zahara," he told her. "Go and take it. We will be here, waiting for you to shine." Zahara looked back at her father, feeling a mix of sadness and excitement. She knew this was only the beginning of a long journey, but for the first time, she felt truly free, free to chase her dreams without fear. Baraka's bold decision shook the village, but it also gave them a new story to believe in, that no matter how dark the night, love and courage could light the way. And for Zahara, it was the moment when hope became unstoppable. 10 years had passed since Zahara left Kijiji Yatumaini with her father's hope and blessings. Now, she was no longer the quiet girl under the mango tree. She was Dr. Zahara Baraka, a proud doctor returning to the village that had shaped her dreams. Her heart swelled as she stepped off the bus, greeted by the warm smiles and cheers of neighbors who remembered the little girl who once lost everything but never gave up. In the center of the village stood a new building, fresh and bright under the sun, a clinic bearing her father's name. Mwalimu Baraka Clinic was more than just a place for healing. It was a symbol of love, sacrifice, and the power of education. Zahara had built it with her own hands, her own savings, and a promise to give back to the community that had supported her when her world fell apart. The whole village gathered for a special ceremony to welcome her home. Children ran around laughing, women dressed in colorful wraps sang songs of hope, and the elders nodded with pride. Zahara stood before them, her voice steady and full of emotion. She announced scholarships for young girls, just like she once was, so they too could chase their dreams of education, of healing, and of changing the world. "I was once a girl with nothing but a book and a dream," Zahara told them. You can rise no matter what tries to stop you. This clinic is for all of us, a place where futures are born, not burned. Tears glistened in the eyes of many as Zahara looked at the faces around her. Her journey had come full circle. From the ashes of her past, she had built a future, not just for herself, but for every girl in Kijiji Yatumaini. And with every life she touched, her father's love and belief lived on, shining brighter than ever. Agneta stood at the edge of the crowd, her hands trembling, and her eyes fixed on the woman everyone was celebrating, Dr. Zahara Baraka. The years had changed her. Her face was lined with sorrow and bitterness, and she carried the heavy weight of loneliness like a shadow that never left her side. She watched as Zahara smiled, gave speeches, and handed out scholarships to girls who reminded her so much of the little girl she once tried to break. Her heart ached with regret. That should have been me, she whispered to the wind, a soft, broken confession no one else could hear. The bitterness that once filled her was now mixed with deep sadness. She had burned Zahara's books, but Zahara's spirit had burned brighter than any flame. And now, standing there, Agneta realized she had lost far more than just a stepdaughter's future. She had lost herself. Zahara noticed her too. Instead of turning away or holding a grudge, she walked over slowly, her steps steady and gentle. When she reached Agneta, she didn't say a word. She simply opened her arms and hugged her. The village fell silent, watching the embrace, a moment of forgiveness, a bridge across years of pain. In that hug, there was no blame, only a quiet understanding. Zahara's heart was too big to hold anger, and she knew that everyone's story had its own struggles. For Agneta, it was a chance to heal, even if it came late. And in that moment, the village saw something rare and beautiful, how kindness can break through the hardest walls, and how even the deepest wounds can find a way to begin to heal. The sun was setting over Kijiji Yatumaini as Zahara stood before the village, her voice clear and strong. She looked at the faces that had watched her grow, the friends, neighbors, and elders who had believed in her, even when the world tried to tear her down. You can burn books, she said, her eyes shining with quiet fire, but you cannot burn destiny. The crowd erupted in cheers, clapping and shouting in joy. Tears filled many eyes, including her father's. Mwalimu Baraka stood quietly at her side, his heart swelling with pride and relief. After all the pain, all the struggle, this was their victory, a story that would be told for generations. In Kijiji Yatumaini, Zahara's journey became more than just a tale of a girl who overcame. It was a legend about a father's love so strong it could rebuild what hatred tried to destroy. A story of hope rising from ashes, of dreams that refuse to die, no matter how hard the world fights. And as the stars began to twinkle overhead, the village knew one thing for sure. No fire, no bitterness, no darkness could ever stop the light of a determined heart. Zahara's words echoed long after the ceremony ended, inspiring everyone to believe in their own dreams, because destiny, they had learned, was theirs to claim.